Welcome to PR Like a Boss, the podcast where we uncover the secrets of public relations, media wins, and how to make your brand stand out in a crowded marketplace. I'm your host, Patz, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by a true beauty industry legend, Emma Guns. From local newspapers to Elton John's white tie and tiara parties, it's a bit of a mouthful, Emma has rubbed shoulders with some of the world's most famous faces. With an award-winning career, Emma's work as beauty editor at OK Magazine has seen her interview amazing icons like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Bette Midler, among others. Plus, get backstage access at Fashion Week and cover red carpets during awards season. And if that wasn't impressive enough, Emma is the host of The Emma Guns Show, where she has had intimate conversations with everyone from FBI agents and Real Housewives to entrepreneurs, health experts, and more. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Patz. How nice is this?
I mean, what a career.
Well, and also it's funny now, in a way, like us having this conversation, because obviously we would have met when we were in our 20s. When I was a beauty editor on a magazine, you were PR. And what I find really funny now is that it does seem to almost be this kind of real nostalgia around it as well. I whenever I see somebody from those early days, because we're all still bimbling about in some capacity, something quite validating about it, and it just feels it gives me all the good feelings, like the fact that we're all still here, we're all still doing it, because it is that industry, I think, that a lot of people tell you is quite fickle, or that there's always a 1,000 people who do your job for less money, which is true, but in some instances. But anyway, so it's my way of saying it's nice to see you.
Oh, and it's nice to see you, and it's lovely because we're all evolving in our own ways, and I think we have to. We're forced into diversifying a little bit and trying new things, and not sticking to like the old school ways, as it were.
Yeah, and there's good and bad with that. I do think there's good and bad with that. I think that I would love to stick to some of the old school ways.
Yeah.
Because some of the new school ways, I think, there's less finesse, and I think it's a little bit too quick. And regardless of my experience as a content creator, journalist, broadcaster, I think for the consumer, it must feel that way. So I always think the pendulum swings too far one way, and then it'll swing back a little bit. So maybe it'll all come round.
Hopefully it does a little bit more. Well, I am so thrilled to have you here today. Let's dive right into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about redefining beauty, challenging industry norms, and setting new standards. So to kick us off, my first question to you is, how have your views on beauty evolved throughout your career, and how does that influence the stories you tell?
My views on beauty have changed massively, but fundamentally at my core, they are still the same. Because as much as I am a broadcaster and a journalist and have been in the industry for a really long time, I am still at my core a consumer who doesn't like being ripped off. And I think that's the approach that I've always, we'll talk about that in a second. That's definitely the approach that I bring to beauty now. I also came at beauty as a teenager as somebody who was looking for products that were problem solvers. I wasn't that teenager who would dive into makeup. The first time I went into the high street chemists was to get things for acne, because I had acne really early and I had facial hair. So I was browsing tweezers and sugaring pots of wax and all those sorts of things. So I never really got to throw myself head first. And so I had this from very early on, a product had to work. It had to do what it said, because if it didn't, it would be expensive as well as disappointing. And I think one of the things that happened when I got the job on OK, which I hadn't anticipated, because I think when you're in your 20s and you say, I want to be a beauty editor, or I want to write the beauty pages for a magazine, truthfully, you have no idea what it entails. And I still remember on my first day having to go and sort of introduce myself to the advertising team and make sure they liked me. And I remember thinking, huh? And that was my first introduction into the fact that there's this sort of multi-layered process that goes on when it comes to actually creating beauty content, and beauty advertising, especially back in the day, really did fund the magazines. It was hugely lucrative for publishing titles. And so I kind of got swept into a very commercial title where the relationships that had to be finessed were simply the ones with advertisers, which immediately takes you off that sort of, you're not looking at beauty products in the same way. You are thinking about the bigger picture and who needs to be kept happy, how much a particular brand has spent, and therefore how much you must reciprocate with editorial. And it's a completely different thing. Whereas when I left, that was still very much embedded, I think, in my psyche. But I had a very formative few years as a guest presenter on QVC. And I really do credit that experience working with people like Alison Young with recalibrating not just my own consumer experience, but recalibrating how I wanted to talk about and represent beauty products and brands. Because when you're on QVC, you are literally talking down the lens at an individual and you have to speak to that person. And it was that experience that made me realize that when I was working very much in editorial, I was talking to my editor, my advertising department, my brands, the brand PR who I had a good relationship with, all of those things. And actually the consumer, and I'm ashamed to say this, came last. But that was a long time ago, Pat, so.
Yeah. And
I've
things have
learned.
changed. So from that perspective, how does that influence the stories you tell now?
The stories that I tell now in terms of how I write about product or about how...
Yeah, how you write about them, how you review them as a content creator, how you mention them in your broadcasts. How has your career influenced that now?
I think there's sort of the two sides of it. If you think about products, very much whenever I talk about product, it will always be, how can I describe this product in a way that will put it into the hands of the right person so that the next time they're in the high street chemist or they're online shopping, they think, oh, from everything I've heard about that, I'm going to like it. In the same way that a restaurant review, you would be like, if you like this kind of food, if you like this kind of ambiance, if you like this kind of price, kind of try to do that with beauty. And then with the brand stories, because interviews have obviously featured massively in my podcast life, that was because during my time on OK Magazine, I had very few words. It was all pictures. But I would meet all these incredible brand founders. I would meet these incredible ambassadors for huge beauty brands like the Estee Lauder companies and L'Oreal. And none of those conversations that would happen over dinner or in 1 hour long one-to-ones would ever make it into the page. And I started the podcast in part because I thought, well, there's so many conversations that aren't out there because the person isn't famous enough, the story isn't sexy enough. And actually, those were always the parts of my job that I found really interesting. So I felt very motivated to tell those stories and to platform people who perhaps wouldn't get the double page spread in the magazine or the big profile feature. But my storytelling in terms of that has really changed because when I first started the podcast in 2016, no brand founders would really do it. It was really hard to get people to come on the show. And it was like Michelle and Tom from Alpha H. James Reed did it because he's been a really good friend for a long time. And it was quite a challenge. If you think about all of the big names in beauty, they all refused. And I took it very personally. I was like, how dare you? But the feedback would come back. And sometimes years later, they just didn't understand how they could talk about their brand because it's not visual. But what's happened is, and it very much was amplified during COVID, is that we all started listening to podcasts. We all had a lot more time on our hands and we all had the ability to engage with a long form conversation. And the journey of an entrepreneur became the sexiest thing that you could platform. And it is everywhere. And that means that from my side, I was suddenly inundated with everybody had a story and everybody kind of worked out the formula that if you tell the people the difficult bit, and then tell them how they rose like a phoenix, it will be inspiring. But that becomes completely watered down and invalidated when every single person has engineered their story to sound that way. And even this morning, just before we started recording, I got another email about so-and-so wants to come on the podcast, talk about their transformational journey. And honestly, at this point, I do an eye roll. Now, I know that's not a good thing. I know I have to evaluate each and every single one fairly. But I mean, I cannot, the emails I've had pitching people for the podcast would make you howl with laughter, particularly with your PR background, because, and it just seems to be, and it moves into the wellness category as well, which I obviously moved into and it's sort of adjacent / there's quite a lot of crossover with beauty to have health and wellness. And everybody wants to tell you how they transform their life with manifesting or with breath work. And I'm not disputing or dismissing that there's value in those things, but none of those people were working in Chicken Cottage and made themselves amazing. They were all pretty privileged to begin with. So for me, I'm like, so I've become, I suppose in that sense, I've become far more discerning about who I talk to, what I platform, and also like, are you just telling me that your story is amazing? Because the proof will be in the pudding, and I don't particularly want to give my listeners substandard content. And I have a feeling, and I've done it a few times, and I'm ashamed to say I publish them, but what do you do with the content? You can't kill it. I have platformed people, and even I during the conversation have been bored and thought, I can't believe, and this person's got hundreds of thousands of followers and people lap up their content and they pretty much say the same thing every single day, and they aren't even on the journey that they say they're on.
Oh, wow.
And they haven't completed the journey that they say they've completed, that they can then help you go on and complete. So I feel at the moment, you can probably hear it, I feel extremely jaded about the transformational story because, and also I think we've just fetishized richness and people who've made money quickly or at a young age. And we are moving away from what we both grew up with, which was get a skill, learn a trade, and work your way up. Work hard and work your way up. And we have moved away from that to how can we get instant success? And I find it ghastly.
Yeah, I'm still trying to manifest that. It's not happening though, so I must be doing something wrong. The universe isn't listening to me. Oh no! Look, I've got literally. Let me just put that up.
No, I was genuinely joking.
Pots of crystals, and I sage the house and do all of that. I'm like, where are my millions? Come on now, come on. I'm a good person. I would do good with the money that I generate.
I know that you're a good person. I know that you work really hard. But then, and again, I'm never going to take away what somebody believes to work for them. If it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah.
But I just see too many really brilliant people delegating their success to inanimate objects, and I'm like. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you actually serious? But again, I touch wood, those sorts of things. I personally think they're superstitions, but that's my perspective.
Yeah.
And
I salute the magpies still.
Yeah. And I have plenty of friends who are into it. And I respect it if it works for them. But I think in a broader, it's more for me, the way it's sold to people. And when was the last time you saw a bloke carrying around a crystal? It's all marketed at women.
Yeah, of course.
So I find it, in that sense, I find it insulting, but let's not go down that road.
Yeah. Okay, well, moving on. In your opinion, what's one thing the beauty industry does really well and one thing it needs to change immediately?
Well, there's so many, are we talking about production? Are we talking about product, the volume of product? Because when people say beauty, I think sometimes it's like we all have a different view of what that means. So in the sense of beauty, what do you actually mean there?
Oh, well, let's go through both of them, from product and distribution, the masses, stories, how PRs tell the stories of the brands. Is there anything that really comes to mind that you think, do you know what, it's done amazingly well, and other things that just don't sit right with you?
Well, the one thing I think that we do, look, it's consumerism, it's commercial, so it has to. I sometimes feel fatigued by all of the newness all of the time. And actually, this is probably where I've come a cropper as in my own job as a broadcaster and a journalist, because my whole thing is I want to find the thing that works for me. And therefore, I want to find the thing that helps the person who's following, listening, watching, whatever. And that means that it's almost that the search stops, but the search never stops, because you can find a really perfect product. And then within months, you'll find that there's something better. And so you end up on this journey of just trying new things all the time, where I think actually, for example, I've tried a gazillion lip products. The one that works best for me is Vaseline. So why would I buy anything else? Like, as much as I would love to try other things, and there are some really sexy products out there, I'm like, but I could go to the high street chemist and I could go and buy a small pot of Vaseline and I know it works.
Yeah.
But that's not what it's about. It's about the adventure of trying something new and the new experience. So I get a bit bogged down by all the newness, and I think I get whiplash a little bit. 1 month we're talking about this, or 1 year we're talking about this, and it was active ingredients, then it was barrier repair, obviously, and then it swings another way. But I don't think the industry should change that because it would fall to the ground. But I think from my perspective, I get fatigued by the amount of newness. I cannot imagine what it must be like for the consumer who hasn't got as much of the insider knowledge as perhaps we all have from this side of things. And the things that the beauty industry does really well, I think beauty often gets overlooked and fashion is given all the credit for all of the sort of the big changes. But I think diversity, body inclusivity, all of those sorts of things, I actually think the beauty industry led the way with that. So I do think that it sometimes doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Okay. How do you navigate the delicate balance between celebrating beauty while critiquing its standards?
Is this sort of critiquing products specifically?
Yeah, or even campaigns.
Advertising campaigns.
Mhm.
Don't really think much about advertising campaigns, to be honest. I
Okay.
do, because I find them all really glossy and I know what their objective is, just trying to kind of get you. And also, I just don't think, I think the heyday of like the L'Oreal because you're worth it. I mean, they should never have stopped that, in my opinion. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe I think as well, the way that we consume media, I'm not sure. I can't remember the last time I saw a beauty campaign, truthfully. Like
Okay.
a really beautiful glossy advert.
Yeah.
Celebrating beauty, I think what I've always done is I've tried never to slag products off.
Mhm.
I just don't see the point, and I find it a little. I just think it's a bit reductive for somebody to say, "I used this and it was rubbish." I think if you're going to say that, fair enough, but say who it would suit.
Yeah.
So I think every product will suit somebody. It's just identifying the things about it that will make it find the person who needs it. Really, I don't like bringing products down. If I don't talk about something, it's probably because I don't like it. But you don't need. But who
Fair
needs
enough.
to know what I don't like?
Yeah, and you've got a good point. It might work for you and not others, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift gears for a moment to talk about the smaller fish in the big beauty sea, indie brands. For small beauty brands trying to compete with those industry giants, how can they stand out while staying true to their values?
See, so this is an interesting one because it sort of implies that there's a compromise or that there's some sort of loss of integrity that has to take place in order to gain visibility. Is that your perspective? Because obviously that's not necessarily something I would have.
See it as, you have the big industry giants which have pots and pots of money and they can do different projects and really push the brands and really continue that brand awareness, whereas the smaller brands don't, and especially startups. Some of them are literally starting from ground zero with minimal money in the bank. So I guess it's like how to cut through that noise and really stand out.
Well, I think you can't really compete, can you? If you've got, you can't think, right, okay, I'm going to compete against Estee Lauder. But I think there are plenty of smaller brands out there who are doing really incredible things. And if you think about a brand like the Inky List, they are doing incredibly well. And Colette and Mark are always all over the world doing various launches and doing various events because the products speak for themselves. And they had a USP. It was kind of like, you pay for what's in the packaging, therefore the packaging is not going to be anything particularly exciting. It's going to be quite functional, but the product's going to be sound. And they have been true to their word. I think that it's never going to be the bigger brands who can just come to market and just throw a load of cash with it, just do ads in bus stops in magazines. You're never going to have that. So a smaller brand does in many ways have to rely on word of mouth. But usually those smaller brands, if you find, I mean, I know people talk about the end of magazine editorial and how magazines are all failing, but all it takes is one mention in Leslie Thomas's column or in Indian Night's column, and that can be transformative for a brand. But obviously, they can't do that with every issue. Not every column can be the thing that makes a brand. But I think it's just about, you have to be true to your values. I don't really know because I don't work on that side of it. I've spoken to a lot of brands and I've obviously spoken to a lot of founders who have frustrations that they would love to do what bigger brands can do. But you have to work with what you've got. But also you have to understand that means you're probably not going to get the awareness that these huge brands who've got 100 times your budget are going to get.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. You touched on inclusivity. So speaking of inclusivity, and it's a hot topic, but it can be a slippery slope. How can small brands be part of redefining beauty standards and advocate for inclusivity without coming across as tokenistic?
I just don't think you can drip feed inclusivity into a campaign. You're either inclusive or you're not. And if you're going to be inclusive and representative, then you have to be inclusive and representative. And the thing is, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, a complete change from what we have previously seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can't do it. So our first shoot of 2025, we're going to have one brown face. And then our second shoot will have a brown face, and maybe we'll have a model with textured hair. I mean, you literally, you can't strategize it that way, because that's even more insulting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a case of, I think, quite rightly, it was identified that it has always looked this way. It must now look different.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't gradual. It wasn't like 70s fashion suddenly turning into 80s fashion over a period of a few years. It was like one day we were all wearing flares or bell bottoms and fringe waistcoats, and the next day we've all got stripes of pink blusher on and, bright Urex skin tight mini skirts. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the nature of it. Sometimes there are things that just don't happen gradually. And I think inclusivity and diversity was one of those things, because you had to do it properly. It wasn't because it was tokenistic, and it wasn't because it was done in the wrong way. It was done correctly. But it was like that one day, and the next day it was different. And so that's the thing I think people are reacting to, is the fact that it was jarring. There was no time to get used to it. It just happened. But, get with the program. And in terms of whether it's tokenistic or not, I think that is something for a brand to look at. I think I've definitely had conversations with people and been horrified when they said, I was asked to be on a panel, and then I was asked, would I do the next one, because optically it didn't look good because it was quite white.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, okay, well, fair enough. I can kind of see, but that's when I think it gets clunky. When it's, and equally, I've had someone on my social media, I had a breakfast with, you'll know all these people. Like, we had a breakfast with Newbie Hands, Eve Cameron, lovely Amy LaRue, Rosie Green, Zoe Evans. Like, it was a really nice breakfast of the old school. And I put it on my social media, and somebody said, surprise, surprise, a load of white beauty editors. No wonder beauty is blah, blah, blah. And I sort of think, right, there's a mixed race girl in that, and it's me, you ding dong. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's like, I'm not mixed race enough to count. So that's where I think it gets a little bit clunky. But anyway, I just think it's because of the speed at which it happened that I think people get confused, not because of what's actually happening, perhaps.
Okay, fair enough. What's your golden advice for startups trying to communicate their unique value to today's socially conscious consumers?
Well, what would your advice be as a PR?
Look, obviously socially conscious consumers are on the rise, and that's basically the nature of our environment. We're all becoming very aware of what we use, how we use it, whether it's beauty, cleaning products, how they affect our health. I believe there's a lot of, we know all about sort of, the greenwashing that happens across all industries. So I think if a brand is going that way, and they're really honing into their eco-friendliness, they need to be completely transparent about the ingredients that they're using, making sure that they are saying the right things and ticking those boxes when it comes to the guidelines that are set in regards to ingredient safety and hormone disruptors and things like that. I genuinely believe that, there are brands out there that hone in on the organic ingredients and the clean beauty and clean whatever, if it's cleaning products or whatever the case. But more often than not, there's always something there that doesn't make them so clean. So I think my advice would be just to be very, very careful of the communication that you're putting out there and it actually matching up to the actual formulations that you're putting out into the world.
My one thing that I would say is, don't leverage clean as non-toxic. Don't scare people. That's the thing that really bugs me, and that will turn me off a brand immediately. And the brands that sort of imply that using their product will cure anxiety or make you feel less anxious or help your mental health. There are people who have started beauty brands having left very stressful jobs in finance. I've heard that story 1,000 times. But then it becomes like the entire story. This cream will make you feel... No, it won't. No, it won't. It might just be a really good hydrating cream. Like, leverage that. But the sort of having it in your bathroom doesn't mean that you're going to be a calmer, more reasonable, more organized person. And I've seen so much of that messaging over the last few years. And again, it's one of the many things that I think is only directed towards women. And I find it really insulting.
Yeah. Okay. Something fun and a little bit more sort of lighthearted. We're going to do a fun rapid fire round. This game is called Beauty Banish or Beauty Boost.
Okay.
I'll throw out a common beauty brand practice and you tell me whether it deserves to be banished forever or boosted to the moon. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, let's go. Claiming products are clean without certifications.
Get out.
Beauty Banish or Beauty Boost. Get out.
Yeah.
Banish that.
Yeah.
Next up, using a founder's personal story as the core marketing hook for a beauty launch.
Depends what it is and what's the value to the end user.
So we're on the fence on that one. It depends.
In the main, I would probably say it's banish, but...
Okay.
And usually, you know this as well as I do, sometimes those stories are so fabricated or they're embellished, so...
Yeah, no time for that. But what about leaning heavily on TikTok trends to start brand growth? Beauty Banish or Beauty Boost?
I can see why it's tempting, but I would say banish. It's like doing mates rates for people when you're starting out and then you can never raise your prices. It's like if you start out as a TikTok brand, can you really evolve away from that? If you start off as like 5-second dancey stuff or some gimmick, can you ever move away from that? And if that's not what you want, if that's not what your brand principle is, if that's not what your core messaging is, then I would say be wise about why you're not doing it and don't do it.
Yeah. How about multi-use beauty products like lip and cheek tints, practical brilliance or a tired trend?
Oh, boost.
I love a multi-usage product. So nowadays, giveaways with massive influencer bundles are on the rise. Are we building authentic engagement here or just baiting the wrong audience? Beauty Banish or Beauty Boost?
I don't really see those campaigns. I know they happen. But they're the kind of thing I scroll past. But then I'm a 47-year-old consumer who doesn't want to engage with it. But I am thinking about who would. I mentioned QVC earlier. As much as I love QVC, they have trained a very poorly behaved consumer in some instances because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. And when I was there, I was really surprised at how much gets returned because basically people can use something and send it back. So they get their money back, but they've probably got 3 weeks use out of it, but they just send it back before the deadline. I'm not saying that every QVC consumer does that, but once you set this standard for something being free or in a bundle or as part of a competition, it does devalue the brand, the product, even the influencer. And I do think as well, if those are always with huge influencers who have huge followings, but what's their click-through rate? Like how much product do they actually shift?
Yeah. How about highlighting a single hero ingredient in product campaigns, even if it's present in teeny tiny amounts?
Oh, get out. It's like putting a picture of an orange slice on a vitamin C cream and then you look at the Inky list and there's barely any ascorbic acid in it. No, unless it's in a tiny amount that is active in a way that will have an impact, then no, please move on.
Okay. Limited edition seasonal products like pumpkin spice lip balm, clever marketing or overplayed gimmick. Beauty Banish or Beauty Boost?
Banish. And these were never gimmicks, but one of my biggest pet peeves about Bobbi Brown back in the day was that they used to do so many beautiful, beautiful limited edition products and they just disappeared forever and they were glorious and they deserved to exist forever. I used to be like, why are they doing limited edition again? It's so good.
Emma, this has been such fun and enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and wit with us today. Where can listeners find you?
On Instagram, I'm at Emma Guns. That's at EMMAGUNS. YouTube, The Emma Guns Show. All podcast platforms, The Emma Guns Show. And don't forget to subscribe to my Substack. There's 2 free articles every single week. So that's Substack/Emma Guns or something like that. But yeah, Substack, The Emma Guns Show, Emma Guns. That'll get you to where I am.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that tuned in. If this chat resonated with you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share this episode or leave a review. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're ready to take your PR game to the next level, don't forget to check out my e-course, PR Like a Boss. It's packed with everything you need to craft killer PR strategies and get your brand noticed. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, stay bold, stay creative, and remember, keep PRing like a boss.